We are virgins no longer.
So a little fun fact about Greece.
In a boat, we're Americans. We're going to spend money. And at the risk of sounding morbid,
The oldest travel influencers on the podcast scene at some point here. So Chuck and I are happy to take your calls. Well, if I had a secretary, we're separate but equal. Someone has to like me best. Enough money and time, you can do anything you want in this world.
the man, the myth, and legend.
I got a Volvo.
Not a political statement.
Travel like something is potentially going wrong. Extra underwear. You can't wear shorts everywhere.
Chuck decides to move to France.
Well, first of all, let's just say this. Everybody get your passports. Who's coming? I'll fight you.
I'm not trying to be funny. They speak the language.
Today's my last day. We're just going to shut down right here.
We spent 4 days of the cruise in our cabins dying.
And if you're sick, don't travel. Ever handsome, ever friendly, ever wonderful. It's not that I don't like children.
She's very picky about everything but her men.
I do believe I proclaimed for the spirit that day. I don't wear pajamas.
And last week on Life in the Baggage Claim.
Good day, everybody. Welcome back to Life in the Baggage Claim. For those of you who may have been traveling along with us over our mini-series hiatus as we drifted from the baggage claim to piling up the baggage in some ways and then tearing it down. We are back on track with our normal content, if you want to call this normal. We have my esteemed, amazing, the guy who edits it all, Chuck Longerbean, the man who makes sure that I sound good and look good while he does that naturally. And we have with us today a best-selling author from Amazon. She's written a bunch of books on smart travels in a series called The Smart Travelista and another one called The Antics from Abroad. She's a writer, she's a blogger, she's a travel coach. She brings lots of experience in the financial background as well. She's going to tell us about her experiences traveling solo. And welcome, everybody, Linda King, who is joining us today from Hungary, right? Or where did you actually end up? Let's hear your story about how you ended up where you are today.
So at about 4 a.m. this morning, I arrived into Copenhagen, but there was a little problem with a few drones in Copenhagen airport last night. So I ended up in Aarhus for about 3 hours, and we were on the plane. We weren't allowed off, and then once the airport opened, we ended up back in Copenhagen. But I'm here. That's the main thing.
It's almost, Linda, as if fate has been conspiring against us getting you on the show, because last time we had you were from Greece, and it was one of those, we watched your face sort of melt on the screen and thought this is just not going to work. And I think we asked a question, and when it turned around, we were like continuing to go, and you answered the one. We kind of giggled because we're like, oh, this is a bad lag. So in this modern day of fantastic internet speeds, one thing we've learned here at Live in the Baggage Claim is good lighting, good sound, and always good internet. But so thank you for being here. Sorry about your incurrence. That sort of sucks to get sidelined by a bunch of drones. But I tell you, it speaks volumes to just the world we're in today, right?
Absolutely. Look, it's going to be
that funny story and that fun story of getting pushed out by drones. Now that just sounds like the title for the next sci-fi thriller, My Life with Drones.
The other thing it does is it falls right in line with what Jim and I do. And Linda, I don't know if you've listened to our stuff before, but we love to talk about travel and all the beautiful things, but we also talk about the things that can go wrong. We're realistic. The world is not a perfect place.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and that's sort of a travel advisor's world, is to be the fairy godmother, fairy godfather, fairy of the travel world, so that you have someone watching out for you. Now, not that we could preempt a drone strike going on at an airport, but, we'd at least be there for you if you needed something. So let's jump on into this, Linda, and have you tell us one of your favorite stories about traveling single and solo, and something that really made a difference in your life.
I think really the first solo travel trip that I did, when I first time I went to Europe. So I was on like a group tour, but then I also had part of it as solo. So I thought that was a good way to lead into it. So, was with a group and then did my own thing. I went to Spain, and I'd never traveled by myself before. It was a real big learning curve, I have to say. You've got only yourself and I to rely on. You can't call someone, help me. You've just got to deal with it. And I think what it does, build strength of character and also resilience. And I think what stops, I think, a lot of people doing solo travel is they're scared and they're worried, how can I cope if something like that happens? I think really, as long as you're still alive at the end of it, I think it's always good if something like that does happen, because then anything else that goes good is a bonus. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that first trip taught me a real lot. It taught me about how you can reach out to people, how you meet people, and it's very different in a group. So if you're in a group, solo people won't approach you because there's two people versus one. Whereas if you're just one person on one, people don't feel so threatened by that.
So, Linda, I think it's great. It's a great statement to say it's a learning experience. Travel is always a learning experience for me. But as a woman traveling solo, you even face more challenges, I think, right? There's a lot of safety concerns in the world for women who travel solo. I have a number of female friends who say it's daunting at times to go places. They too enjoy the solo travel. What would be your guidance to a female heading out for their first time on solo travel somewhere where they've never been? Like, what do you recommend for women? How do they protect themselves, keep themselves safe?
What I would say, if you're doing it for the first time, probably stay in a hotel that's got security. So yeah, as long as you've got security there and 24 hours, I would say that's the first tip. I've been in places where the doors are not really great. I've got a method. What I do, even if the door is secure, I have a method. So I have the chair up against the door, and then I have something. If someone tries to get in, it's going to smash something or something's going to move. To do those sorts of things, what I would say is don't, and this is common sense really, but sometimes common sense isn't that common. Don't tell people where you are, like your room number. Like that's a massive security breach. Like a lot of hotels will have where you can't get up to that room unless you've got a card, but others won't. Like they can just let you go straight up. You're really putting yourself at risk with that sort of thing. And just, I mean, for me, unless I'm in a group or on a tour, I won't go out at night because I think that's dangerous. And so what I will try and do is get myself all ready by a certain time, usually coordinates when the sun goes down, get my dinner, get everything else all sorted, and then come back to the room, because a lot of trouble happens at night. Obviously, it being dark and, all the, I was going to say all the predators, but all the.
Truth.
Yeah, yeah, those sorts of people are around. And what I would say is when you're meeting people, just be very cautious as well. Like these people aren't your friends. Like you don't know them like a friend. It's an element of trust there when you've got a friend, you know them. You don't know these people. You don't know what their agenda is. So it's just about going and then just sort of moving on and doing that sort of thing. Yeah, it's just for me, look, I've been doing it for a while now, so it's common sense. But it's just about not drawing attention to yourself, doing things in a safe way. Don't go down dark alleys. Like that should just be a no-brainer, but, don't do it.
Some of the
Don't,
best spots to go are down those dark alleys.
oh, look,
Sometimes in some cities, that's where the nightclubs are. That's where the events are that you want to go out after dark, right? It's not going to be in the most scenic part of town. And I think that's the sage advice, to not go out after dark. I think it depends also where you travel. Yeah, it depends on what the city is. I sort of think there are some cities you can safely say you could go. Every city, certain parts, but heck, I wouldn't tell people to come down to my neighborhood after dark unless you really know what you're doing at it. It's just that way. It's
That was
everything.
what Yeah, we could say Jim and I have talked about that before, about people ask, is this place safe? Is that place safe? There are places in my hometown I won't go after, midnight, 1 o'clock in the mornings. Yeah, every place has got those spots. Sounds like I like your advice, like Jim said, be cautious of where those places might be.
And if not, use the right kind of transportation. I think is always a good suggestion. Don't go walking on an adventure as the sun sets, although it can be beautiful. Sunset can draw us into places we probably wouldn't go later. Remember that you have to get home and think about, the foot traffic. And, I think it's the case too. I always advise is be aware of what you're carrying, right? For women, don't carry a big purse or a big bag. Try to minimize. For guys, I always say put your stuff in your front pockets. It's a little harder to get that. And if you have pockets that can be zipped, or if you can make sure that your hand's near a pocket all the time. If my wallet and a bunch of cash is in a pocket, usually my hand is not far from it. And I never wear anything in the back pockets anymore. Besides the effects on posture, I just don't do it. That's where people will come up and slip it out. And if you're a loose fitting clothes person, you stand more risk for that than someone who maybe wears things that are more snug. But I think it shouldn't deter you though, right? There should not be you don't say, I'm not going there because it's scary and there might be crime. There is literally the chance that you could walk out your door of your house today and someone could mow you down. I mean, that's just maybe not your case, Chuck, because you live on a very small cul-de-sac kind of thing, right? So not a bunch of people, but
Linda, I have a question that brings up a question. How do you figure that out? Do you do research beforehand? Do you have a network of people you chat with? How do you find out when you get to a new place, or before or when you get to a new place, where to avoid and where to be careful?
So I do a lot of research. There's an index, a safety index, actually. I'll have to send you a link to it. And it tells you all the countries and their top ones that are safe. So I went to Iceland after we spoke briefly while I was in Greece. That was very safe. That's the number one safest place in the world for solo travelers, for women, pretty much everybody. But yeah, let me send that to you later. But I check that index, and if that country's on the index and it's on the lower index, well, we might have to rethink that. But yeah, I do research. I make sure that wherever I'm staying is in a good area. It's not going to be, like in the red light district or somewhere like that. Yeah, and I think when you're traveling, you've got to be safe, but you also want to have an adventure, right? If you try and be too safety conscious, then it takes a bit of the fun out of the travel, in my opinion. But we want to do more travel. If we take a lot of risks, we may not return home. So it's just in my opinion, a fine balance.
Yeah. I was speaking to a group of gardeners this weekend, and one of the things we were talking about was a travel tour to some gardens in another country, and they were asking about safety. And I said similar. I says, it's just, you do not want to limit yourself from the adventure of it, and travel should be an adventure. But I also don't want to say, well, this place is really cheap, I want to stay there, without knowing if it's cheap because of where it is and what happens around it, right? So I think that's really sage advice. It'd be also great to see another resource. So I think it's great to have another resource, because we often refer our folks who listen, who likes to share and subscribe to this videos, to go to the Department of State and look at their site, because they do ratings for us, for the U.S. citizens, for anyone who wants to look on what country safety is and what's going on and what to be aware of. So let's do a little pivoting here, because I think one of the things I found interesting when I first talked to you is you also have a background in financial management. And Lord knows, I'm sure Chuck and I could both do with a little bit of financial management these days, given the cost of things and the fact that we're both starting up businesses and juggling a lot of different ways of how to use money while not using money. But obviously, you've traveled as a financial person. How do you work out the amount of money? How do you do your budgeting? How do you make travel work into a budget if you're tight on money, or, because obviously if you're flush, it's not a question. If you got a lot of cash, it's not a big deal. But what do you do to make sure you can still hit the road, but do it in an affordable, budget conscious way?
So it's part of my research. I have a look at the cost of living in that place. Also, we think about what my Australian dollar is going to get for that currency. So as an Australian, if I go to Asia, I'm going to get a really good exchange rate. Traditionally, Asia is very cheap, like food, traveling around, accommodation, the whole bit. So I do that. So if I'm not going to Asia and I'm, going to Europe or the US, I will do the research. And what I'll do, I'll keep an eye on the exchange rates as well. So if I'm going to buy cash and the dollar or whatever is rallying and I'm getting a good exchange rate against the Australian dollar, then I will buy a parcel of money, knowing that I'm going to go on that trip later. So I do a number of things. I'm just going to say, ChatGPT is really good for this too. So if, I know people.
I'm giggling because Chuck and I have very different attitudes on approaching AI. I embrace it very differently than he does. He also is a former math teacher, but he's probably sitting here around. No, math, I was math. No, you were for Asian.
English. That's what makes it worse.
Yeah.
That's right, English teacher. So he's not a fan of AI. But anyways, I think so tell us about when you go to ChatGPT, because a lot of folks listening probably use it as well. What are your secrets there? What do you do to find your ways to save money there?
So I've written a whole book about this, about the travel planning. But what you do is put in, I'm traveling to Vietnam. What's the cost of living? Just put simple prompts like that in there. And any other budgetary sort of comments like how much is it going to cost me for a meal and all that sort of stuff. So we've got a lot of resources. We're lucky. And I know ChatGPT is a bit contentious. People have got different opinions about it, but it's another tool that people can use. So you can either Google the question or you can go in there. But yeah, and we're lucky there's a lot of resources on the internet. So, you know, you can put in, I'm going to Japan. Tell me this. You know, we can put anything we like in there and it will give us information. So, yeah, for me, I like to travel in quality. I'm not going to do the hosteling because, again, that's like a risk to your security anyway. And, you know, obviously a hotel room's a lot nicer and you've got a little bit more security, but that comes at a cost, right? So that's going to cost me a little bit more if I have a hotel. Where can I save money in other areas? So, you know, we love going out to restaurants and cafes, but do we need to do it every meal? Because at the moment I'm in Copenhagen and it is highly expensive. So what can I do to cut that cost down? Can I have a big buffet breakfast that's going to account for almost that and lunch? And then I don't have to have much for lunch and then have something else for dinner. So it's just about how you juggle it. It's about what's more important to you in your trip. Is it the accommodation or is it the restaurant meal or is it something else? So what you've got to do is you've got to look at your budget and go, okay, I can spend a bit more money here, but that's going to affect other things in my budget, travel budget. And this is an individual thing. It's, you know, my way might not be the same way as either of you two, you know what I mean? But it's about traveling in quality, but not at the price.
So, Linda, what's the name of the book that you wrote called that's about your travel planning? What's the name of that book? So our listeners know.
Yeah, so let me just tell you, it is Turn Travel Plans into Memories with ChatGPT.
Oh, so it's actually very specifically on, that's great. And is that available on your website, Smart Travelista?
So the information's on the website, but it's actually available on Amazon. And I've got about 108 travel prompts in that book.
Wow.
And it's specific, and we're talking budget, we're talking accommodation, we're talking flights, travel inspiration, all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, if anyone, you know, likes...
Well, through the magic of editing somewhere up around here, I'm sure that my friend Chuck here will flash that book cover up so you see it, and we'll make sure our listeners can hear about it, because I think it's great that you've gone that deep. I mean, honestly, that will probably help folks who are uncomfortable starting to use Chat, GPT, AI products. That'll give them a little of a sense like, okay, I can start this. I mean, it's going to get harder and harder not to use them as they intertwine with browsers and you know, I'm a Google guy. I've always been a Google guy. And now Gemini's deeply engaged with, you know, the Google browser. So you're always going to have an AI prompt, right? It's just going to become more and more. But I think having that knowledge, somebody kind of guiding you through, it's almost like the Chat for Dummies kind of guide, right? Here's the Chat for travel dummies, right? You know, and then of course, as I'm always going to say, you know, as travel advisors, that's our job too. We help you sift through that too, right? We won't let you stay somewhere outside your means or outside your safety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about any hacks you want to share with our listeners. Any travel hacks that you feel are gotta know type things beyond ChatGPT?
Yeah, well, I know, you know, with miles, I mean, I use miles quite a bit. So I'm traveling. I traveled to London on miles, so I didn't pay for that airfare and put my upgrades in for the business class as well. So that for me, I mean, and again, people in two camps about miles. Do they want to go all in or do they not want to do it? I think you can go into it, but you've got to get a bit serious about it, because the more serious you get with it, the quicker your points are going to build. And for me, and again, this is individual, I will redeem the points for a long haul flight or somewhere that's expensive. So, you know, going to London, I think last year I went to French Polynesia, which is traditionally an expensive place. I used the points there as well. So it's just about getting savvy about that. And sometimes people are daunted about how to build the miles, but once you get in and understand it, it's very simple. And the points build up quickly as well.
I think you bring up a great point about being serious. To me is also that focus, right? It's picking an airline, it's picking the travel cards to go with that airline, finding the programs that are multipliers on your points. That's really the only way, right? And I have my interesting experience was I used to live in San Francisco, so United was the way to go, right? You book everything United. Tons of miles. I moved to Dallas, and lo and behold, United's not a big thing here. Use American Airlines. I had to sort of restart and refocus. Just as in, I'm sure Australia, you would pick Qantas, for instance, over a lot of others. I don't know, Chuck, what's your preference in airlines? Do you have one that you build miles on?
American.
Yeah. And hopefully the thing I always just wish you hope they don't change the program as you're trying to build up and go.
I know,
Because
right?
I do remember a time when I was younger traveling on United where, boy, I could get a business class upgrade to London anytime because it was just cheap and enough miles and it was easy to do. You know, nowadays not as easy, but I think that's smart. I think miles are the kind of thing you got to know what you're doing. You got to watch what you're doing. You got to make sure you're adding it up. I think your best guidance there too is spend it on the bigger piece, right? Use the big ticket items. Don't fly to a small city just across town type thing, right?
Well, and
Yeah.
Linda, you bring up some great points because we've talked along the way, and we talk with our clients about budgeting and thinking things through. But you're bringing up a lot of things that we hadn't even talked about. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. You have any other questions you want to ask, Chuck?
No, I'm good. I just want to hear Linda talk some more.
So
Hi, Linda.
I can give you some more tips as well.
Please.
And again, I think these are, for me, they're common sense, but don't travel in peak season. Like, for instance, I'm currently over in Europe. If I'd gone in July or August, my costs would have been a totally different story. You know what I mean? Everyone wants to be over here when it's hot, but it's going to be the most expensive time. So if you can delay it and try and go in getting closer to shoulder season, you're actually going to save quite a bit of money. The thing about it is, true, the airlines, the hotels, and all the touring companies have got less capacity. So they want to fill that capacity and they may even offer discounts. So it's like a win-win. Obviously, the weather's not as nice, but if you can cope with that, then you're actually going to save a bit of money. Another thing, and again, people may not like this, traveling on the really early flights. So I've had a few of them over the last few weeks. I wasn't happy about it, but the flights actually saved me a lot of money. So, it means maybe a 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. getting up, but think of the money that it's going to save. You can always sleep on the plane. You know what I mean?
You bring up a really good point that I've talked to people about before, and Jim and I have talked about this, about the weather. I mean, if I'm going to the beach, I want it to be hot and sunny. If I'm going to London and it's in the 40s or 50s, I don't care. I don't know. I don't think people, well, maybe they do. I don't go to London for the sunny weather. I go to, for the museums and the culture and all that kind of stuff. So that's a really great point. It's depends on where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, folks, we're here today talking with Linda King. She's a best-selling author on Amazon, and you really should check out her website, which is the Smart Travelista. That's www.thesmarttravelista.com, and Smart and Travelista, Travelista, in case I bore it so much.
Put the link up.
Yeah, we'll put the link in it, but definitely check out her materials. She just shared with us her ChatGPT guide for traveling. That's great. And she's sharing her tips and her trips and her tricks to do things today. And we just got through, we're talking about going off season. Go ahead, keep going, Linda. Let's hear some more.
All right. What else can I tell you? Again, I think with the exchange rate, pick a place that's got a good exchange rate because that's automatically you're going to save money. Another thing I would say also, investigate the area, the place you're going to, because sometimes people buy the currency before they leave. But if you actually go to a place, you might actually get a better rate against your currency. So again, Asia's a perfect example. I could try and purchase if I wanted to take cash and, I've got credit card and cash. If I purchase it in Australia, I'm not getting a good exchange rate. If I go out to the street, say wherever I arrive to, I'm actually getting a better rate. So, but it depends on the country in the world that you're traveling to because it doesn't work in every country, but it certainly works in Asia where you take your Australian or your US dollars and then they've got obviously a lot of currency conversion places. Ask your hotel or your accommodation where the best one is and then go there and they're happy to take your dollars and you're getting a lot more money. And then that means you've got more money to spend while you're there as well.
I don't know about you, Chuck, but I grew up where you took traveler's checks when you traveled, or if you remember back to those days.
Oh, yes.
Which are no longer a thing. I don't know how big that was in Australia or not. But I would even say that cash is becoming less and less of a travel worry as people sort of expect to land, go straight to an ATM and get cash. And minus the fees, you get the daily exchange rate, which is obviously, depending on the volatility of the currency, can be good. And I think that's something people these days. One hack I always remind people, a lot of international ATMs don't take a PIN over 4 characters. Don't put a If you're an American and you like your PIN to be 6 or 8 characters, know that when you get to an ATM, and a lot of them won't accept it. Something to be aware of in case you didn't know.
I was also going to say there's another tip I've got. So if you're using a credit card, always put it in the local currency. Don't put it in your own home currency. What you're doing, if it goes from the where you are to your local currency, you're paying extra conversion. You're better off getting it in the local currency because that saves you on fees as well.
I was saying there's this tendency, especially in Americans, we like to tip, right? We're big tippers. That's our culture. And the danger there is if you're doing US dollars, you may be actually way over tipping, not that the person doesn't deserve it. But you may be really over tipping. It's also just to understand the culture of tipping where you go. Because I've been a lot of places where it's not even asked. And then you kind of sit there and you go, am I supposed to or am I not? So understand that culture. But I think that's great thinking about having currency, because if there's a big number, some currencies, a dollar is 100 or something else, right? So knowing those conversions keep you mindful to what you're giving somebody and the kind of cash you're carrying. I think that's very valuable.
Yeah. And I would agree with you. A lot of places are now doing credit card. Like Scandinavia is a perfect example. You're not seeing cash here at all. It's all credit card. And I think they're ahead of the world. I know before the pandemic, I was over here as well, and they were already doing that as well. So I think, some countries
I agree with you. I think cash is just starting to, it's the thing our parents worried about, right? Now we're in the generation in between that's sort of, we still carry cash because sometimes cash is great and can sometimes get you a deal, right? If you tell someone you're giving them cash, you might get a better price. But everybody's sort of moving towards apps and credit cards and tools that let you pay without, basically in all the digital currency, digital world. So that can be dangerous. I've been caught with that where you put a transaction in and you find out the currency jumped, and before your transaction got in, that happened. Next thing you know, you paid a lot more. I've also been on the other side of that where you travel, and when the US dollar was really strong, it was great to go over to London a few times when we were actually beating the pound, which was not it's not an we used to joke and say Australia was always on sale for us because we go down to Australia for a low price on the dollar. But you've got to watch that. It's a very big part of budgeting for travel, because you may think you have the money, but the currency exchange could suddenly jeopardize your budget.
Yeah. And another thing too, Visa has got the best exchange rate in the whole world. So if you've got a Visa card, use that as well, because they've got the best exchange rate.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. I try and use my Visa, not my MasterCard, because I know I'm always going to get the best exchange rate in the conversion. So
I'm going to ask you a tricky, hard question here. So you do all your own travel, you book all your own travel. Why don't you use a travel?
Because I was a travel agent and I know how to do it.
It's good for you to share that, because I think sometimes people would be sitting here going, oh, gosh, they kind of put themselves out. I think travel advisors are going to always be that way, right? You get to know the ins and outs, your world. So I think it's important to say that because you were a travel advisor as well. So let's talk about, what would be sort of very big, like your words of wisdom for our audience in parting.
I think if you're a solo traveler and you're only beginning, do your research and believe that you can do it. You can do it. It's going to be a bit of a learning curve the first time you do it, but once you've done it, that confidence is going to build, and then it's just going to become like muscle memory for you. You're going to be able to do it all the time.
So maybe start somewhere easy the first few times as you get used to it. Pick a major city with, well-known safety records and things, so you kind of get the comfort level. Sometimes I even suggest just people willing to go out of state here. Be willing to go to another state on.
Yeah,
I do think solo travel, as you said, there's a lot you learn about yourself when you're traveling. What did you learn about? What's the big key thing you learned about yourself traveling? Not about solo traveling. What did you learn?
What did I learn? I learned a lot. I learned that I can handle myself when things go wrong, and things always do go wrong, like last night. And it's just about, I think when things do go wrong, and that's happened in the past, you start getting into a certain mode and you go, okay, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. It's still stressful. Doesn't matter how many times something goes wrong. There's still an element of stress and there's still an element of uncertainty. But you've got that muscle memory where you go, okay, I know I've got to do this. I know I've got to do this. Like last night, I was like, okay, we're on the tarmac. I don't know. Am I staying in a hotel there? I was on the phone to my insurance company to tell them what was going on. I rang the hotel in Copenhagen. I said, don't cancel my booking. I'm coming, but I just don't know when. And so, yeah, I think you just go into that mode. I think the first time you're like, oh my God, what what am I do? What do I have to do?
What are you-
I don't know. I don't know. Oh my God. Like, and it's highly stressful. But I think the more things go wrong, and not that I want to promote travel where things go wrong, because things do go really well as well. But with life, as life, things go wrong. Things go good, things go wrong. Same in travel. You have to understand that, but that's part of the adventure.
And that's sage advice, I think, in today's world, especially where things change on the drop of a hat. You never know. You could walk into a thing that you didn't even know was coming. I forgot to ask you this because you did just say something that was really good to hear about. You carry travel insurance?
Absolutely. Annual policy. And so I do an annual one because if you just do per trip, it ends up being really expensive. So if you can get an annual policy, because that'll be fantastic. And you're pretty much covered for every country. I don't know about in the US, but my travel insurance covers me for the whole world, except for the sanctioned countries. Obviously,
Yeah.
they're not going to, cover me for Iraq or Iran or Lebanon or anywhere like that. But
Sure.
anywhere else is covered. But travel insurance, absolutely. And the thing is, if something does go wrong, get on that phone. They usually have like a toll-free number and tell them. Like I rang them last night and said, this is what's going on. Because if I've got to make a claim, you've got to tell them immediately. So, but yeah, don't ever travel without travel insurance. If you've got the money to travel and you don't take travel insurance, you're taking such a big risk. And yeah, I would say if you've got the money to travel, you've really got the money for travel insurance. I would definitely say that it's mandatory in my opinion.
So I think I have friends who say, oh, I've got my credit card will cover me. And I was like, well, check
Right,
that
well,
policy and look at what I can sell you. You know,
a lot
I
of
just,
fine print in that one. A lot of fine print.
and we obviously try to sell insurance as well with travel. I very much believe in it, especially depending on your role. I also look at the person and say, I got a friend I'm putting on a cruise. He's a first responder. I says, dude, if you don't buy insurance, it's a mistake because
Right.
you don't know that the day you leave, L breaks lives here in Dallas and you've got to go. You can't go on your trip now because your job requires you to be there. You know, these are the things you got to take in mind. And I think you said the best thing. If you can afford to travel, you can afford the insurance. It's a small amount of money to pay for the peace of mind that you're covered for medical and safety and health and other costs to get home if you have to and you can't, things like that. It's a great consideration everyone should really make. And if you're not taking it, really be aware of what the consequences could be.
Yeah,
You
I
make
would
that
agree.
great point. If you save up all this money and you're so excited and you don't have insurance and it all blows up, you've wasted the money.
Yep.
So, Linda, as we're getting ready to wrap, would you like to do a PSA on yourself and anything you want our readers to know about you and how to find you? And I think, hopefully maybe sometime we'll be able to have you back as well.
Yeah, sure. So, and thanks for the introduction earlier. But yeah, as you mentioned, I've got a background in travel and money. I'm an author, travel blogger, and travel coach. I have a wonderful travel blog, and wherever I travel, I do money saving articles, also destination guides. Obviously, I've got the books on Amazon. I've got the 2 book series. So I've got the Smart Travelista guides and the Annex from Abroad, where where anything can go wrong does. So if you're into entertaining stories, that's probably the series to head to first. But yeah, I'm on all the social medias. I'm on the website. Please feel free to reach out. I'm always up for a chat. If you've got travel questions, I love hearing about them as well, because sometimes my best ideas for things come through questions people asked. But yeah, absolutely. Anyone, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to help.
And as you can see, Linda does have a whole bunch. The series on her antics from abroad is really, there's an alignment between a lot of what we're doing there. But everything she talked about today, I think, rings home for our listeners. And I hope you enjoyed getting a moment here with Linda as well and check out all of her stuff and follow her and read her stuff materials. She's a great resource. She's been lovely to work with. I got to tell you, Linda, you were the first person I talked to about being on the show. And you've just been such a great person to work with. You're very friendly and kind, and your stories are funny. And I've enjoyed all the seriousness you provide too, and then the guidance. So with that, folks, definitely leave comments if on this podcast if you'd like. Let us know what you thought of Linda. We'll put the information on how to reach Linda and her website on the blog, and we'll make sure it's in the notes comments of the actual episode. I want to thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Linda, for being our guest. Chuck, you get the closing words today.
Linda, it's been lovely to meet you. Thank you for all the help and all the advice. And I do hope you come back.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys. And yeah, I'll come back anytime.
Fantastic. Thanks, folks.
See ya. Bye.